fear is absolutely debilitating. I probably dropped between 30 or 40 pounds and I lost my mojo. It would only compound me getting more depressed because people would immediately say, I wasn't, hey doc, how are you?
Right.
It was, how's your back? And I remember when I woke up that morning back in Villanova, I was like, oh my God, I can't see, right? And the whole left side of my body was paralyzed. I had autoimmune disease called Guillain-Barré syndrome. I was praying like, hey, I'll be better tomorrow. We would be in gyms and people would walk up to us and we would literally be doing step-ups with 315, squats with 315, deadlifting 315, running sprints and doing box jumps on 42-inch boxes. And people would stop and come up to us, and we're in our 30s, like we're well into our 30s, and they would come up to us like, what are you guys training for? Like they thought we were going off to war.
Life.
And we would chuckle and be like, we're training for life, man.
Yeah.
You feel great. You need to get in here and get some of this.
Absolutely.
As I look at it saying, I'm approaching 50 years old, and that I want my patients, our community, our audience to know, you must find that inner power. Hey guys, welcome back to Tough Love with Dr. John O'Connor. Today's episode is the story behind my rituals, routines, and the darkness that I was blessed to come out of and get to the other side after a very long battle with, what I was identified with for a very long time, my lower back pain. And we're going to talk about the journey and everything led up to that. This story started right before the beginning of COVID, and it was a pretty trying time. I talk about this all the time, with my athletes and when I'm presenting, is that in life, most of my athletes experience a lot of winning. And this was a time period that I had just brought on a business coach. The business was struggling because of growing pains, and we realized the infrastructure had to be better. Although we were doing great, we had just taken on our largest project to date. We took on a 15,000 square foot sports performance rehab chiropractic facility, which in the area was the largest of its kind. And my son transitioning into high school, that was also a tumultuous time because it wasn't the right fit for him. And one thing you'll know as the audience is that if you have an unhappy child, that's consuming, right? That's even probably worse than the back pain I was going through. And we wanted to get him to happy. So, fast forwarding in but looking at the experience, it was early November and the hunting season had just started. It was a training season for me where we were getting all of our middle schools ready for basketball, and I was working out around the clock like normal. And it was a beautiful weekend, and I was playing golf with a buddy, and we had 2 days in, and my back had really locked up on the Sunday, the second day. And I kind of knew. I was training with my son. I was introducing some new movement patterns, and, it was cold in the woods, and then there was a dinner the night of, and we got back out the next day, and I was exhausted. And you know what? Anybody who knows me knows that wasn't going to stop me. I just, sucked down a cup of coffee. I got after it and went out and took a swing, and I was like, that doesn't feel good. Finished up a little bit early and grabbed something to eat. And that night my back locked up. And when you're Dr. O'Connor, who I am, we have an awesome medical team around us. And, I was on, your muscle relaxers, a standard care, muscle relaxers, a mental dose pack, everything. And really nothing was touching it. And, but at that point I was still me. I'm a person that has not a stranger to adversity, right? I was paralyzed as a kid. I had fractured my skull. I had broken my back a separate time, as well as a knee surgery that was a full year recovery. It was called a microfracture repair. And, so I had been through a ton. So for me, it was like a drop in the bucket, and I knew that I could overcome this in my head at that time. Little did I know it was probably the most intense fight of my life that was just about to begin. And so, from there, I would say that, the medicines didn't work and I was really struggling. And at the time we were scaling. So what does any entrepreneurial mindset do? We had a business coach with us, and Jeff Jones was absolutely amazing and still is. We speak to each other still quite often to this day. And Jeff had just picked up a new client that had an excellent reputation in Pennsylvania that did regenerative medicine. And, I was being in physical medicine and wellness, I was like, yeah, I'm into it. I'll definitely investigate stem cell and PRP. I was talking to my medical team. They thought it was a good idea to go for a consultation. And we drove out there, and it was a great experience. I really felt like the guy had a good handle on it. The patients in the, when you're me, I jumped right in and started asking all the patients in the waiting room, how was their experience? How were their outcomes? And everything was favorable. So I was like, I'm in. I want to get better. I love the idea of healing the body, letting the body be its own doctor and healing itself. And so we went with this, and it was an expensive procedure. Much like our practice, it wasn't covered by insurance. It was something that I thought was going to help me, and I invested back into my body, and we did it. Definitely one of the most painful experiences I've ever went through. It was somewhere between 125 and 150 injections into my mid back, lower back, hips, feet, knees, everywhere. It crossed, I believe, 3 office visits, as well as them extracting and drawing the fat cells and creating the stem cell and the PRP. So it was definitely a come to Jesus moment for me. Real quick, guys, ice baths and plunges are taking over Instagram and social media. Everybody's jumping on them. Edge Theory Labs has a portable product, probably one of the first of its kind, that's absolutely amazing. I highly recommend it. I think it's a fantastic way to accelerate your recovery, get you into a relaxed state, get your body back out there so you can keep on training and keep making gains. Let's get back to our podcast. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And we do the regenerative medicine. I'm doing stem cell, PRP into my back. And we go in for that, the week worth of procedures across 2 weeks. And I take probably 100 plus injections into my spine throughout my, my thoracic, or my mid and lower back, my hips, and no analgesic, no medicine, just straight needles and toughen it up. And I remember the nurse, and she was super sweet. I don't remember her name off the top of my head, but she was like, honey, just hold my hand and squeeze. And I'm like, well, and I grab her fingers, and he's going to work on these needles. And I'm like, I apologized to her. I said, ma'am, I can't do that. I'd rather grab the table. I think I'm going to break your fingers off.
Right.
And, I get there and I feel a little bit better. And growing up, I was so excited to get back out and get hunting with my dad. So I think I went out, probably too soon. Typical me, just chomping at the bit to get back out. And it just went right back into, pain and despair. And when I thought it couldn't get any worse, I had then started getting weird symptoms right after the injections, where I started getting nerve pain up and down all over the place, shooting burning pains from my rib cage all the way down to my feet. And again, I had an amazing team. I had a biomechanical orthopedic surgeon that's, specialized in biomechanical engineering, and a neurosurgeon with me. And they were like, John, at this point I was no longer doc. You don't need surgery. We just got to calm these nerves down and get it under control.
Right.
And the whole time I'm still spiritually strong. I'm like, I'm coming, right? We got this. I'm doing my routines. I'm icing my back. I'm on my Normatex. I'm doing my massage stuff. I'm going through my McGill exercises. I'm doing everything I can to get back. And then the sleepless nights started. And after about the first week, I realized I'm in it. Like, I'm in the fight of my life. I am waking up every night, somewhere around 10, 11 o'clock. And I'm a bed early. I'm gonna go to bed early kind of guy. I like to get up early and attack the day.
Right.
And I'm not sleeping. And now fast forward looking back at this, it's surreal to me that this was my life and I'm living it. And it was a nightmare. And it was about 91 days, to be exact. And, I lost during that time. I was now officially, the fear set in. I was afraid to work out. I probably dropped between 30 and 40 pounds. And I lost what has always been me, the juice, right? That people talk about, the flow. And I lost my mojo. I was a shadow of myself. Here I was 210, 215 pounds, always pretty well put together. And I was 180 something pounds. And everywhere I went, it would only compound me getting more depressed, because people would immediately say, I wasn't, hey doc, how are you?
Right.
It was, how's your back?
Yeah.
And that was my identity. And I lost my presence of being the super trainer or the super doc, the physical medicine guy, the wellness guru that we called it. Was, I was identified by this back, this pain. And it was crushing, so that was, probably the darkest point of the sleepless nights, and, literally patrolling the house. And, I would go from the bedroom to my recovery room in the front of the house to my theater in the basement. And I would try to focus, and I wasn't into meditation and breathing. And I was literally back to when I was paralyzed as a kid. And I remember when I woke up that morning back in Villanova, I was like, oh my God, I'm like, I can't see. Right. And the whole left side of my body was paralyzed. I had autoimmune disease called Guillain-Barré syndrome. And it was like that. It was surreal that I was sitting there, and I remember being a young man, and I was praying like, hey, I'll be better tomorrow. I'll be better tomorrow. And I went back to that, and I started, I was sitting with myself, and I was like, okay, we got to pray
Right.
because medicine is not working. I have now tried the epidurals. I've tried facet injections. I had doctors, bending over backwards to accommodate
Right.
and get me this optimum medical attention. And again, I'm meeting with the surgeons. I'm taking different views, and I think if it happened early on, when I rode out to Pennsylvania to meet with another neurosurgeon and a team of their doctors. And they said, we just don't see it. We don't see where you were a few months ago, and you'll be better than that. See if you can get to the other side of this. And, at that moment, it kind of choked me up because I kept saying to myself, I'm like, God, it's got to be a surgery. It's not getting better. And I was kind of getting my head around that. I started kind of writing and journaling and saying, okay, I'm going to have this surgery. I'm going to be the best version of me. It's going to be a new version of me. And they said no. And then I'd be second guessing. Maybe these guys don't know what they're talking about. And then I had to say, I got to reestablish my faith, and I have to believe in something. I have to stop second guessing. Right. And we say that in sports, we say that in healthcare all the time, that you have to be demonstrative, assertive, and confident. And because I was such a mental mess, I didn't have that. Right. I didn't have that conviction or belief that I was going to get better. And I woke up one morning, and the shift started when I ran into a friend, and we're remarkably close. We've been close since our kids moved to town. And he said, hey, I know you're going through something. I've been through it a couple of times, and they told me I need surgery, and I've been warding it off. I had a pretty stressful life. And he turned me on to this book by a Dr. John Sarno. And I started reading it, and I loved the spirituality of it. And I started thinking about all the similarities of these personalities of these people that experience, that level of pain. And I said, oh God, I see myself jumping out of these pages.
Right.
And I was like, all right, I can get behind this. And simultaneously, we were down for our family vacation, in Long Beach Island, where I love to get down there with the family. And I started moving, and I was working with some remarkable doctors. When you're a person that's treated 15 to 20,000 patients, I was reaching out globally, and doctors are reaching back to me saying, hey man, we're going to help however we can. And I started with little things. And before, I think that you don't realize, like you see all these cliche statements and these power statements. And I love all my motivational podcast guy. And now I want to bring my story to the podcast world. And I wasn't buying into it. I had lost that belief of like that, the coach gets you going and you run through, you slap the wall and you go out there and you play your ass off. And I lost that part of me.
Right. And going off of that, Doc, when would you say you lost all hope? When you woke up the one day and people kept asking you, how is your back doing? When would you say the day was when you lost all hope of what you can do for yourself?
That's a great question, Matt. I'd have to say right around that time, and it was just luck. It was like totally happenstance that I had ran into my buddy, and he was telling me that. And and there were people around me, my family, my wife, and everybody's like, hey, you could do this. You're the toughest person we know. I mean, you had your microfracture surgery on your knee was rebuilt. You were in the pool at 3 a.m. You got back, you were so motivational. You had a former Duke player come and train with you and meet you in the pool at 4:30 every morning, and you run, and you got that. You got this. You get to the other side. And I couldn't get my head around it. It was crushing to me. And when I started with Sarno, I went through and probably read about 70 books, and I touched them all. I went down the Oprah Winfrey list of deep, deep reading, Eckhart Tolle. I mean, you name it, I read it. And what I really realized was, I chuckled, and I think the audience can relate here. I loved the complexity of what Eckhart Tolle and these other writers and spiritual healers got to. But for me as an athlete, it was almost too deep. and I had to go into something I could relate to. And I loved, and as crazy as it sounds, I loved the Tony Robbins approach of simplifying concepts and making it something that I could go into,
Right.
and taking routines and ritualize them. And then from there it was Ed Milet, and I adored their message, and I started believing again. And it was like The Power of One More and all of these different books that I have literally, audiobook read, took notes on, made them my Bible. And because I had to get my routines back, because that sense of being broken and hopeless and saying, wait a minute, I've always been the one.
Yeah.
I've been the one that my athletes, I would get behind them and be like, hey, you didn't make the team. We got this. And I would be grabbing them and getting them on the court, getting extra reps. I mean, I've always been the one more rep guy.
Right.
I've never come off a court without, if a kid missed a shot, there was no way you were unlacing your shoes and getting off the court without getting one more rep. And I started feeling it again, and it started to wake up. And, during that time, I started getting that little momentum. Being a trainer for 20 years, I said, it's time for me to evolve, right? And I brought this trainer on that I had known in like a past life, when we were, when I just had one clinic and we were up to 3 or 4 at that point, and started working with her. And it was funny because when you're doc, right, and an egomaniac and you're a grinder, I never had a trainer before. People came to me. I was the go-to,
You were in
right?
control of it all.
And I was running these athletes. I was the on-court guy. And, I was always the main stage. And then all of a sudden, here I am. I'm a shadow of myself. I lost that mojo. I lost that confidence. And I was, ultimately petrified to move. I couldn't do a plank, a push-up, getting, getting in and out of the shower. You chuckle, we're blessed. We've had a great run and success in business, beautiful shower design. You got the seat in there, this and that. That seat was probably the most terrifying. You would have never thought that a seat in the shower and a toilet would be two terrifying
Right.
things in your life.
Absolutely.
And changing and moving was something that I literally had to practice the art, like practice, the concept of visualization, to say, I can do this. Hey guys, huge shout out to one of our companies that we work with, Cryoscience. They have an amazing product called the Penguin that we utilize in all of our clinics. And this unit is actually a local cryoscience or cryotherapy, which we utilize for specific injuries throughout the body. I know for me, it's one thing that keeps me training. I definitely use it on my shoulders, my back, and my knees. And I think it's an amazing device. So anyway, a huge shout out to Cryoscience and the innovations they bring to the sports recovery market. But let's get back to our podcast. It's funny. I was in such a lost place that I needed, and here's a great quote that I would say, people come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And I was looking for someone to be my doc, to be my John O'Connor, my Dr. O'Connor, that would take me and get me to the other side of this. And, you know, in those dark hours, I knew that my relationship with sports and sports performance and just trying to be the best version of myself and be better than I was yesterday, I needed to find that person again. And I needed somebody that would believe me. And again, it's a client relationship, just like patient care. But I felt that it was super strong, and she was knowledgeable. And I'd say it was way different. I have trained and and have been blessed to work with some amazing athletes, and they come from top programs, so they bring their sports performance programs home.
Right.
Her version with kettlebells and powerlifting and these mobility patterns, they were foreign to me. And I think that part was great. It was definitely laughable. Anybody that knows me, like, I'm like, yeah, let's do it. No matter what it is. Oh, you want to jump off a cliff? You want to do this? You want to do workouts? You want to do that? I never say no. Um, I probably said no to her 80% of the time.
Yeah.
We're going to touch our toes. No. We're going to run. No. We're going to bend. No. And I felt like a movie that I only had one word, like, like I am Root, Groot or whatever. And I just said no all the time.
Uh,
And I knew, as I was starting to celebrate those little gains in my progression, that I started saying, let's do a little bit
let's
more.
do it.
Let's grow.
And it's very easy for a personal trainer. If their client keeps saying no, 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 they can easily push you off to somebody else or be done. But as much as you stuck with her, she stuck by your side.
Yeah, 100%. And, I think that you, the audience, when you guys are listening here, that's the message. You're not always going to be the best, your 20-year-old self, your 30-year-old self, whatever you are. But wherever you are in your life, you want to be the best version of yourself. And I knew that if I wanted to be Dr. O'Connor walking the hallways of my facilities, or Doc at a sporting event, or just John and showing up, that I needed to be able to do stuff and not be afraid. And I will tell you, Matt, the one thing that could be a whole podcast in itself is fear is absolutely debilitating. And of diseases we don't talk about, we talk about anxiety, we talk about depression, but fear itself is a terminal disease if it goes untreated. And I don't care whether that's the fear of relationships, or the fear of change, the fear of growth, the fear of failure. For me, it was the fear of pain. And and forever, anybody that knew me with my one more rep mentality was, I loved pain. I loved being the first one in the ice bath, before ice baths were cool. I mean, one of my workout buddies and one of our doctors that runs our Red Bank facility is like a brother to me. And well before, CrossFit was CrossFit, we would be in gyms and people would walk up to us and we would literally be doing step ups with 315, squats with 315,
Yeah.
deadlifting 315, running sprints and doing box jumps on 42-inch boxes. And people would stop and come up to us, and we're in our 30s, like we're well into our 30s. And they would come up to us like, what are you guys training for? Like they thought we were going off to war.
Life.
And we would check on
Life.
and be like, we're training for life, man.
Yeah.
You feel great. You need to
Mhm.
get in here and get some of this.
Absolutely.
And, so like I said, I think that you realize, and what resonated with me was, being blessed, the timing was great because we're in the Ford Athletic Club location, as you know. That brought me to ground zero for me. And I remember, and so appropriate as a former military base, we got in there and this place was leveled and we were waiting for this place to be built. And when it opened, I had said to a friend, we were out, and I said, this is where I'll be reborn. And this is where I will have an awakening of sorts, where I will get my body back. I will get my spirit back. And I want to grow and put that story out there to be like, hey, you could do it. And being alongside me in the patient care realm, how many times when patients talk and they see where I'm at now, and I'm back to a fit level that I think is a good platform. And
Yeah.
some people say that you're doing pretty
Right.
damn good.
Right.
I tell them the story and I share that darkest hour with them. And I say, I didn't sleep for 90 days. I couldn't go out to dinner. Holidays, I would go to bed, the family and everybody was up, and I would be going to bed at 5 o'clock. And because I knew I'd be up at 9 o'clock and be up for the rest of the night. And it was heartbreaking for me. But to share that story, to say, hey, listen, it's not hope, right? It's not, it's not that you're going to pray for this, like wishing. It was hard work.
Right.
It was sacrifice. It was every day taking all of these amazing motivators out there that I needed a little bit of them in me, whether it was listening to Kobe and listening to him talk about all the injuries and the amazing, like even Kobe was such a warrior. Like when he ruptured his Achilles, walked to the foul line, hit the free throw, and then walked off the court on his own, with his own body. I said, I need to find my inner Kobe and be that person. And I think that when we talk in patient care and really want to transcend that, as I look at it saying, I'm approaching 50 years old, and that I want my patients, our community, our audience to know, you must find that inner power. And however you get there, for me, it was the rituals, routines,
Right.
but it was that darkest hour.
Yeah.
If I wasn't, I was listening to Todd Durkin's podcast a few weeks ago, and he had 3 episodes, and it was like I was listening to my own podcast.
Right.
And I think he was in Mexico, and he was, laid up. He couldn't get to his family stuff, and he was like taking me to the hospital.
Yeah.
And I was the same thing. I said, hey, listen, I'm a little bit more medical training. I was like, so I was like, hey, I'm going to need a new MRI. Get me in. I need surgery. If I wake up one more time, I'm done.
Yeah.
Like I'm broken. Someone's got to fix me, and whatever I will be from there has got to be better than this state that I'm in now.
Right. And going off of that, Doc, you're one, you open up to patients, you really dig deep into them. When you're working with patients, it's almost as if the same mindset you had when you don't want to try to rely on anybody, but when patients are in pain, they look at you, oh, it's Dr. O'Connor, he's a doctor, his life is perfect, his life was always perfect. But what they don't realize is they don't open up to you until you start to tell your story. They're very point blank range. I'm in pain. This is okay. But when you open up to them, they lay it all out there.
100%, Matt. Pain and fear, um, the words I think are blinding and deafening. Meaning, when you're in pain, all you think about is being healthy, and it consumes you. And the thing that I so believe now is that, and this is something that took a long time to believe. And again, and we'll get into my morning rituals and routines very shortly. That when they're in that type of pain, we must relate to them. And my story was so genuine and so dark that when they have an ankle injury or something like that, they're like, "You didn't sleep for 90 days. You were going to work. You had ice packs on you. You had heat on you." I mean, I honestly, Hyper Ice should make me their all-time number one brand ambassador, because I think
Full
I've
body all day.
full body all day, and and I think the endorsements for all those things, like, I just kept going, and I think the one thing that I would tell you, and if you have another question, I'll take it, and then I'm going to kind of get into the rituals and routines. I think the biggest lesson I learned was facing your greatest fear, or being identify what that is so important. And there's always like the loss of loved ones. And, I'm dealing with that right now. My dad's health is fading, and that's my main man. And, I try my best to be there. And that was one of the things that I used to say, give myself purpose outside of myself, is my family, and being there for him. We grew up in the outdoors. My dad is a physical guy his whole life, a tree guy. And I wanted to be able to help him, and I wanted to be there. I wanted to be physically strong for him, and just wanted to be tough,
Yeah.
excuse me. So, whew, and that's probably the biggest thing, and I think our generation growing up, it was always, hey, I'll give you something to cry about, or,
Yeah. Right.
those kind of things. And
Yep.
you never really thought about that whole crying thing. And I have to tell you, during that 2 years, I never cried more in my life. And I literally was like, there's something wrong with me, because forget the pain. I was emotionally just spent, and I would be crying for, moments where I was like, I finally got to do something. And I'd be crying from pain. I'd be crying from, I get excited, little things.
Uh,
I'm like, damn, I was never so emotional,
yeah.
and I found that, and now I embrace it. I feel like when I get a tear to my eye now, it reminds me of what I've been through.
Right.
It reminds me of the power of communication, to say to somebody like, I'm here.
Absolutely.
I've been through it,
Hmm.
and I'm gonna get you to the other side.
And I'm
So
staying.
I'm not going anywhere.
Not
Exactly.
going anywhere.
Exactly.
But I'm good on that side, Doc. I really want to get into, everyone knows you're a big routine oriented guy. I want Dr. O'Connor to take our audience through his morning rituals and routines and what sets him up to win the day and win the week.
Love that. So I basically pace my day. My week starts on Sunday, right? So that's always been my own personal holy day for, recovery, rest. My posts years ago were always Sunday fun day, where I would have a workout, recovery. So 4:45, I get up. I like to take down some water when I get up right away, and I try my best to stay away from my cell phone and this and that, because when you get to the level of success we're at, people are always bombarding you. And when you're a helper personality like me, it's hard for me not to jump on that phone. And that was something that I needed to find, that spiritual wholeness and the quiet. All right. And I needed to be able to sit with myself in silence. And from there, I usually have, I'll have a cup of black coffee, take a cold shower, or, jump in my ice bath. And then I utilize our modalities, as which I love. I meditate anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes, usually done before 5:45. And I go through meditation. I do a ton of breath work. And that was a challenge. Anybody who knows me, I didn't realize when I started the breath work, the first time I took a deep breath, 6 seconds felt like 6 minutes to be able to take an inhale and an exhale. And I realized the importance of slowing down. And as I started doing that, the momentum was happening, and that was a big thing that my trainer turned me on to. She's super spiritual, and she put me on this book, and it was about two bricks. And I realized my whole life that made me fantastic. And I remember taking one of my athletes in 2010. He was a National Player of the Year, and as a graduation gift from college, and had just got drafted in the NBA. We went down to Florida and got him. I got him down here to work out with a bunch of NBA trainers, and we were down there doing a certification. And I realized when I was working with those guys, I hated making mistakes. And instead of thinking like when we would drill with these guys, you don't realize until you're, shooting people. And I know my listeners right now, especially my girls out there like Christina and Haley, they're going to be smiling right now. They know how we shot the ball. And, you'd shoot 100 times and, make 88, 92 every time. And I'd be upset about those 8 to 12 misses. And this book, the first story she showed me was two bricks. I think it was, and the whole message was this monk had built this wall, and the only thing he noticed, and this wall was amazing, were the two bricks that were out of place. And I think the biggest thing that it taught me was to celebrate saying, wait a minute, but it's 98% perfect, and celebrate those little wins.
All the other bricks that are perfectly placed.
Yeah. And I think the end of the story was pretty amazing, because a contractor or builder had walked up to the monk and had said, this wall is amazing. And that he noticed it. And he said, where we come from, that's the signature mistake on purpose that identifies the artist that built the wall.
Yeah.
And it taught me perspective that I didn't otherwise have, because I always thought that's a mistake, fix it, one more rep. And, having that enlightenment for me, I think was really something that was super special.
Right.
And so back to the routine phase, I get through that. I think it's important. I then move. And today was actually a breakthrough. I've been, a 4 a.m. workout person forever. And today, the day of this podcast, I actually worked out this morning at 6 a.m. I was on the assault bike. I was swimming laps. I was doing push-ups and planks. And it was like a birthday for me. Like, I was so excited to be back to that. And it wasn't crazy. I always say that you have your big workouts and your small workouts. It was probably 25 minutes. And I think that's good. And, I think that's good sometimes just to have just a little boost to the energy system and get
Everybody
it going.
Needs it.
And that's what I tell people a lot of times with ritual routines is start small. If you haven't worked out in 2 years, don't go do a 2-hour CrossFit workout and be dying for the next 2 weeks. And you're in our office, you're broken, But back into those routines, I start with the water. I definitely have a little bit of coffee. And, one thing with the injury, I found that because my body was in that sympathetic fight or flight mode, I actually didn't want caffeine in me. I didn't want anything to stimulate my nervous system to make me feel any more anxious than I already was.
Yeah.
And being able to take coffee in, it gives me a little boost. And then I jump into my meditation and, and that gets me in the right headset. And from there, that's when it's about an hour in, I start to get to my phone, and then I set the priority for my day. I usually try to, I'll reach out to my team, as we'll reach out, and, whether it's our, the social media team or my work circle, and we jump into it.
Right.
And at that point, I feel like I'm focused and everybody's there. And now it's great, because what you realize, and that's why it's so important to have these ritual routines for you, the audience, is now we're all sharing on that. And that's the message. So if something about my routine is something that can inspire you to elevate your level of motivation, your commitment, your results, then this is so worth it to me. It's giving me the ability to be able to give back to you and help people, because so many people, much like myself, was the fear of moving. For the reality was, I thought, man, I can never have that pain again. And so that's something I thought was really big. And as far as, for me in fitness, I used to chuckle, and I think so many of our local audience knows me. When people say they work out 5 times per week, it used to be something that was intriguing to me. And my team that's in this room right now know me a long time. And I would be like, well, I train times per day. And so now I'm much more respectful of house that I live in, my body, to say, you know what, I'm going to go hard 5 days a week with work, with working out. And then I'm going to have a recovery day. I have a mobility day. I have clinical recovery days. Yeah. One of the books, Matt, and I left this out earlier. Life Force was a book that I really loved by Tony Robbins. It was a little bit different than his other motivational books. It was more a pathway book to all the science that's out there for healing. And when I brought that in from, our local cryoscience product, or our PEMF, our acoustic sound wave, or shockwave, or our lasers, our red light therapy, all those modalities, I used to tell this in patients all the time, or in my athletes, I used to call it the 10% rule. And if you can get 10% better from seven different things, you're 70% better. And, so then when I put my meditation in, I put my nutrition in, I put hydration in. I was a water drinker when I would work out, but now it's like, I probably take down a half a gallon to a gallon of water. I mean, a gallon, I take a half a gallon down before 8 a.m. I drink anywhere from a gallon and a half to 2 gallons of water a day. And all of those components have led up to a new and improved me. And I'm not going to say I don't have aches and pains, but now it's manageable. And the mindset I approach with them now is, how good do I feel? It's not debilitating. I'm going to slow down and take a look. I get back to the work. I get back to that self work, and I just keep chugging along, and I feel great.
Right. Amazing. Awesome, Doc. Well, you answered all my questions further in depth too. One more thing before we get going here is gratitude. Let's talk about that. I know this is going to hit a little bit. What are you most thankful for out of your whole life situation? Struggling, not being able to get out of bed, onto being successful now. What are you thankful for?
Yeah, that's a great question. During COVID and that silence time, I did countless hours, out by the fire pit, and just reading and practicing gratitude. And I had to laugh because I was so angry at the situation that I couldn't really think of anything that I was grateful for. And then I had to back into it. I had to use all these different, these podcasters and these motivational speakers and these, ridiculously successful people to rechannel, things that I could be grateful for. And I looked back at all the people I was able to help. Right now, present, I was so excited, so thankful for my trainer, right? So a person that gave me back movement, that gave me back the confidence to move. And, I think I have burnt in my head, suck it up, buttercup.
Right.
And, to kind of, have that rebirth, because I really thought that I would never be the person I was again. And, when you identify with being that type of a person, and I could see it with professional athletes when they stop, or businessmen when they retire, or businesswomen when they retire, I had lost my identity, and it kind of helped me refine my why and my purpose. And then it made me start having a practice of gratitude on a daily basis. And I strongly encourage all of you out there. And now it's a part of my morning routine and my PM routine is to go through, and I'll think of 3 to 5 things that I'm grateful for every day and recap the day, so that I know that there were things that happened, that some of them were experiences I had with people, some of them are actually people, and things that I get to, be impactful with my patients and friends and family. So that's what I would say.
Just want to say you're such an inspiration to me too. I mean, I thrive off of your energy, as you know, during the day, and just morning rituals and routines. I'm starting to build up mine just because of you. So I just want to thank you for that. And guys, Dr. O'Connor, really tune in, listen in. He means the world to me as a mentor, a boss, but I hope he does to you guys as well, because what he has to offer as far as education goes, not only with what he does as a living as Dr. John O'Connor, but life lessons in general. So definitely tune in.
Thank you guys so much, Matt, and thank you so much for the kind words. Guys, thank you so much for joining us today on the Tough Love Podcast. Again, I'm Dr. John O'Connor. Whatever media platform you're following us on, please follow us on our Dr. John O'Connor at Instagram and the media platforms that are available to you. Thank you so much. We look forward to sharing more episodes in the future. Have a great day.